Welcome to the Path Podcast, where we will travel the lives of some bold women, from dreams to detours to destiny. She did not choose this path chose her. This is the Path Podcast. Welcome back, Path listeners, to episode 3, part 2, the final episode with my guest, relationship coach Trinette L. Collier. If you are new to the podcast, please go back to episode 3, part 1, to get the beginning of Trinette's path. A quick recap for those returning. Trinette and her husband were at the point where they were going through some tumultuous times, dealing with infertility concerns, finances dwindling out of control, and now the marriage is being tested. We pick back up with Trinette and her husband arriving at the airport for a trip he planned to Jamaica. Was he surprising his wife for a well-deserved vacation? Stick around and let her tell her story. So you booked the flight to Jamaica.
And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, okay, now we're going to make up. You see that I've been working, I've been stressing, because I think probably right before that we had, big argument about how things were going and this, that, and other. So I'm thinking, oh, he's booked a trip for the both of us. We go to Jamaica.
The trip was going to be for both of you.
Right,
Yes.
And and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, he didn't tell me to get dressed or anything, but I'm just really having this faith in him, this hope that he's wanted to change the marriage around, and he wants to be romantic. He didn't tell me to pack anything.
Yes.
I'm taking him to the airport. And Arlene, I promise, I swear on my parents' grave, as the kids say, I swear for God, I really thought when I dropped him off at the airport, he was going to tell me to park the car and at the airport, parking lot, and meet him at terminal whatever.
Yes.
He got out the car.
Yeah, everyone heard that. She was believing up to that point. That trip was for her. Why not? All you put your body through for the past few years trying to have a baby, stressed and everything. Why wouldn't a husband do that for his wife? So I get it.
I really did, Arlene. And then as I'm dropping him off at the airport, it's in the morning because I went to work. And it was summer because it was our summer school session. And I just remember, I said, okay. So he kissed me goodbye. And he looked at me and I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay. And he said, I'll see you in a few days. And I literally sat there in the zone, the drop-off zone. And I sat there for a moment. And, we didn't really have social media, so I couldn't get on and post or anything. But I remember literally sitting in the drop-off zone. And I had my hands on the wheels and I said, did he just go in without me?
Yeah.
And then
without me?
Yeah. I was like, he got his suitcase. And I'm thinking, okay, let me give it a few minutes. He's going to come right back out. Nope.
You sat there for a minute.
I sat there and it had to be about a good 10 minutes or so. I sat there and I said, well, no, he ain't coming out. He's not coming out. So,
I'm sure you said other things and we're still in disbelief.
Yeah, of course. I'm like, he didn't come out. So that's when I began driving. And Arlene, I was driving on 75. And I know I probably should have had an accident or something, because you know how you just drive and you don't know if you switch lanes or if you put on a signal or whatever, you just know that you're driving. So I drove. And I drove, I made it to work, and I was in such a daze. And we had a staff meeting that afternoon, because that's when I was sitting at the table and my coworker was there. And I remember at the table, and in the middle of the staff meeting, I think the principal was speaking or something like that. And I whispered over, I said, I just dropped him off at the airport this morning. And so she said, Trinette, what's going on? I said, I dropped him off at the airport. And she said, oh, okay. Like she didn't, because that's all I said. And she said, where did he go? I said, he went to Jamaica. And she looked at me and she is fun. She's a funny coworker. She said, Trinette, girl, what? And so she knew him as well. And she said,
Yes.
why are you not there? I said, he didn't take me. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the moment I said, oh, wow. And she looked at me and she grabbed my hand and she knew I didn't know because I was such a naive person. You know, I believe the
Oh,
good in everybody. I
yes.
don't look at the
That is
bad.
Trinette, everyone.
Yeah, you know,
Yes.
and I always say I won't say it's a downfall because I believe God made you
No, it's not.
who you
Mm-mm.
are. But for me, I always thought it was a curse, you know, like, why am I this
Mm-hmm.
nice? But she grabbed my
Mm-hmm.
hand and she said, Trinette, she said, you're gonna be all right, but it's time for us to talk. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and again, I was,
She wanted to go old school and say,
yes,
bless her heart.
yes, yes. She really, if she could have slapped me, she would have slapped me. You know, like
In
wake
love,
up,
in
right?
love.
In
Like,
love,
wake
like
up, shake
wake
you and
up,
wake
girl.
up.
So you know, I remember going home, and again, you know, I'm like, wow, he's in Jamaica. So
Yes.
you know, I'm like, okay, he didn't call until that evening to let me know he made it, and at that moment, the conversation was very dry. So then I knew. I said, okay. And it was like the conversation was like, oh, I'll call you. We're not in the room. You know, those type of excuses. So we're
Yes.
not in the room, or I'm not I'll be back in the room late tonight and this, that, and I said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very
Mm-hmm.
dry. Oh, well, I gotta go, you know. Oh, okay. So days passed by because I think it was only like a 3-day trip or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He got back. I remember picking him up in the same spot.
And you picked them up
I
also.
picked him up, Arlene. I picked him up because I was trying to be a good wife. I picked him up.
Yes, you were still good heart,
You know,
everyone.
and
That I'm going to tell everybody that ain't Arlene's story. I wish I could be. I can learn from some of my friends. I
right.
promise you. And still, being a good wife.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
I'm with you.
it is, you know, you still trying to be a good wife and you still
Yes.
trying to, you know, so the phone calls throughout his trip, you know, there was once a day, I think, because again, you know, it costs and so forth. And
Yes.
but there was very short, there was nothing exciting. And it
Hmm.
wasn't like, oh, okay. So picked him up. He handed me, he got in, and it wasn't even trying to, he was so obvious, he didn't even try to kiss, you know, when you miss your
Yes.
spouse, it wasn't one of those. It was just like, mm-hmm.
Hmm.
You got in the car, you handed me a shell, a big seashell, Arlene. And I looked at him,
He brought you a shell back from
he
Jamaica.
brought me a seashell back from Jamaica.
Oh.
And I said, oh, and I remember throwing it in the back seat. So
Uh-huh.
I literally tossed it in the back seat because at this time I wasn't, I was putting two and two together and I couldn't
Yes.
really, I didn't have any proof, but you know, females intuition is like, come on,
Hmm.
bruh, come on. So I remember
Yes.
going to
Yes.
IHOP in the local area. Remember going to the local breakfast spot and I sat there and
Hmm.
Arlene, God is my witness. The thing that saved me that night from acting a complete, um, I'm going to say a fool, but out of my
Yes.
character were
Out of your
the
character.
fact that there were
Hmm.
two police officers sitting there because I
Yes.
was so furious. I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. Um,
Yes.
I could not believe. And I asked him the question. I asked him, I looked him straight in the eye, and I remember having my plate of food, and I remember having my knife and fork and spoon, you know, your
Mm.
cutlery sitting there. And I
Hmm.
had my hand on the fork. And I literally I was so enraged with hurt,
Of course.
but it was more so anger because at this moment it's like you made me look like a fool and you betrayed me. And I, even though I didn't have solid proof, I was like, okay. So I remember watching the police officers there. And again, I'm a planner. Going back to that planner, I was trying to strategize how I was going to do this.
I was gonna do
Literally.
this. The cops don't get me, and
Yes.
everything. You just trying to plan in your
I
head
was
how.
trying to plan in my head, like, okay, I never cut a food like this, but I know
Yes.
I could. Like I was planning to. So I asked him the question. I said, did you go on this trip? I said, I have a couple of things to ask you. I said, did you go on this trip with a woman? No, no, why you would say that? You know, the usual. Why you being
Yes,
defensive? I
deny.
went on with my homeboys. And I said, well, none of you know, I named his homeboys. I said, none of them knew anything about going on the trip because at this time I did ask his best friends or whatever, and they literally didn't know. I said, well,
Exactly.
no, I met some new guy. I said, oh, okay. I said, are you having an affair? And he could not look in my eye, and
Wow.
that's how I found out that yes, you're having an affair because you could not even be man enough to look me in the eye. You were so you know you going to continue to lie. So from then on, that's when everything went downhill. And I did not
Exactly.
find out that he literally had a child until a year or so after.
Wait.
Yeah.
You can't casually say, okay,
Yeah.
up until that point, he had not had a child while in your marriage, of
No.
course.
He was
So let me,
childless when we got married.
exactly, while married for, years, of course, as well.
Yes.
So I'm not going to let her jump ahead, everyone, but
I
let
know.
me just say this here, because as she go into that part, we said it was smoke.
Yeah.
Okay. In her book, she'll say this is not the end. I think some of this, to me, all of it could be fire.
Yeah.
But this is where, the fire starts to me even more. But she knows that part where it's the whole book that's a woman on fire. But she did mention that she found pictures
Yo, yeah.
and of him and a pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
He did, and you said in the book, of course, where of course they're still married,
Yeah.
and he said it was a cousin, I think, at the
Yeah.
time, and you just let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and of course later on you found out. I'll let you pick up from there.
Yeah. And being
You found out it
the
was
the tech, at that time it was kind of easy to break into an email email.
yes,
And I found the pictures, and it was him and her at the baby shower. And of course, he told me
at a baby
at
shower,
their baby shower.
like it
Yes.
was planned. What? Please tell me, family wasn't there.
Yes,
His
family was
family,
there. Family knew.
so people knew about this, even though he was still
Even
married.
though we were
Everyone,
still married, hadn't talked about divorce or any of that, we were still married. They had a baby shower, and the mother and grandmother were there. His family knew that he was having a child. And
that
it was,
Trinette
I know.
has that. Ladies, have you? Did you hear that? And see, some of us who went through our divorce, if we had, our husbands cheated, or
Yeah.
if it was financial reasons, which they say is the number one cause for divorce, you sometimes think your story is,
Hmm.
is a lot, which it is. Don't get us wrong,
Right.
because we are not going to minimize our pain,
Exactly.
but still, that's a lot. For a woman, what she already talked about, she went through
Hmm.
to try to have a child.
Hmm.
To now see the man that you married has another woman pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trinette, I cannot
I
imagine
was looking at
what
the
went through your
pictures,
mind.
and I looked.
You probably was looking at her more than just
I
him alone.
Yeah.
Then it became both of them, of course. Why can she get pregnant?
Yeah.
Who is a mistress,
Yeah.
first of all, and she gets pregnant, Lord. And it almost makes you want to ask, not we don't question God, but we ask God,
I question him,
okay,
Arlene. I
yeah, well,
question.
we do. We do. We
You
do.
know, and
I
you're right.
did.
You're so right. Because at that moment it was like you're like, okay, I'm not supposed to question God, but I have to be transparent. I
We did it.
questioned God from head to toe. If he was standing right here, I had the
Hmm.
black girl movement on when I was looking. I was like, Lord Jesus, are you? I literally was. I was like, oh my God. And as I
Hmm.
was sitting there looking at the picture, and of course he denied it. And I asked his other cousin, whom we were pretty close, cool with. He
Hmm.
literally did not know. And he got real quiet. He said, no, he said, that's not our cousin. And
Yeah,
he said, I don't know
exactly.
what's going on, Trinette. And he said, I don't know what's going on. And I really believed him because he was such
Yes.
he's such a his character speaks such volumes. So for me to believe him, I really did believe that he didn't know anything about it. And he just kept saying, you know, he said, just talk to him. He said, but I don't know. He said, but I could tell you that's not our cousin. That's not our cousin.
Exactly. He knew that
Right.
part.
He knew that part, you know, because they have a small
Yeah.
family. So, you know, he was like, that's not our cousin. And so I asked the mother wouldn't tell me. She was like, you're going to have to talk to him. And I said, okay, something ain't going on. So I asked him again. I'm like, are you having a baby? He said, no, that's my, you know, my cousin. I said, okay. So then I started seeing other emails coming in from her family about the wedding.
A wedding? You cannot plan that's illegal to plan, you know, well, I can't say to plan, but
Yes.
to get married. You can't be getting married if you're already married.
Right.
Legally here.
But when I looked at the email and the pictures, the baby had already been born. So yeah, the baby had been born. It just so happened these emails were coming through when I got to them because I was looking at the dates and I was like, oh wow. But I didn't know the baby had already been born. And then it started coming too when I remember one day, Arlene, he came in from a local grocery store. He had some Pampers. And I'm like, what is he doing with Pampers? And he said, oh no, I got to drop these off at my mom's house, one of her god kids. And I'm thinking, I really didn't think nothing of it. I'm like, okay, some Pampers. But now, afterwards, I'm like, oh.
It made sense.
Because
you put all of that
mother
together.
and his mom and his grandmother were babysitting the baby. Mind you, we live right around the corner. Mind you, we're in church together. Mind you, we talk with each other almost every weekend. Like we literally only live 10 minutes apart away from each other. And nobody sat down, not these wives, sat down and even told me anything about what was going on.
Exactly.
So for an
and
entire
these are people you went to church with still.
Yes, going to church, sitting on the same pew, serving on the same ministries. So by this time, Arlene, the bitter church hurt was setting in.
Yes. I was about to ask you, did it make you question
the hurt from
of people?
Yeah, from
because
people.
it is people. Yeah.
From the whole family dynamics, the whole mother-in-law, all of that, it started setting into me like, wow. And the day that he didn't tell me now, but mind you, he did not tell me. His mother came to the house in September. And that's why September was such a traumatic month for me because my dad died in 94 in September. And then this happened, years later in September. So, it was like a death all over again. And I remember I'm sitting on the couch. She said, I got to talk to you. She came over with the yellow envelope. She said, she was trying to be all calm with it. And I just asked, I said, is he having an affair? And she didn't say anything. And she handed me the papers. She said, I think it'll be best for you. And I looked at her and I was so filled with hatred.
Of course.
I was filled with betrayal. I was filled with so much rage. I remember my brother was he was doing something in the basement. He came up, he heard me crying because at this moment, I was just crying really loud. He came up and he said, what's going on? And I told him, I said, he has a child and he had an affair. So I remember my brother was like, do I need to go over there? He was like, I'm going over there. So his mom is like, no, we got it under control. And I looked at her and it was like nothing she could say to me. So at this point, that's when the fire, it exploded.
The fire really hit. That's where you say the fire comes in.
Yes,
I get it.
It is.
And everybody's fire starts at different points but I understand when.
And that's when everything took its course. That's when it really, everything hit. And, I was in denial, I'm like, well, once he finally told me, he still couldn't look at me and so forth. And, he was still playing the game like, well, I'm still trying to see if the baby is mine. Now, mind you, the baby been born. I think this child was about close to a year old. And you still talking about, oh, I don't know if the baby is
trying to play.
Yeah. And so me, again, trying to believe, well, you know what? We're just going to wait for the test results and we'll work through this and another. And God was like, at this point, he was knocking me on my head like, baby girl,
Baby girl. Yes.
The baby
Baby
is
girl,
his.
come on. The baby is, yeah, yeah. You
You
didn't need
know,
more Povich to tell you that. It's
yeah,
just
it was
the
like
baby is his.
God himself had to say, look, the baby is his. And
Yes,
so,
because
and then that's when I had to, that's when I started spiraling out of control emotional wise. And I was
wow.
still trying to keep it together. Because
Of
in the
course.
midst of all of this, I had just quit my job.
Oh,
I quit teaching to start a business with a friend.
yes.
And that in itself was a journey that had me
I
filled
mean
with
that.
hatred and with
Yes.
regret and all of that, because everything happened all at once, Arlene. It was like finding out that he had a baby, finding out that I no longer had a pretty much a husband, so that means
Yeah.
I couldn't have a baby, but now this woman had his baby with his name,
Yes.
doing the things that she's a mother. And
Yes.
so on top of that, I no longer have my job. I'm still trying to run the business. So now my savings is like they're being depleted. My savings, because I'm
Yes.
trying to rectify the marriage. I'm trying to hold
Of
on to the
course.
home. And it was just like I had to let it go.
Wow.
The home got foreclosed. So I had to move into an apartment downtown Atlanta. And at this time, I'm like, okay,
And this was,
we're gonna
I'm
start it
sorry, was
over.
that you moved in it by yourself? By that time
No,
was the
we
marriage?
moved in together because again, I'm
Mhm.
like, we're gonna work this out. We can do this.
Still
I can
trying.
be a
Yes.
stepmother. I'm like, I can embrace the child. I'm really still trying,
That
because you know
is
what?
being a bigger, you're a bigger woman than me.
Yes, I'm look now,
I give you that. That's,
but
and that's not in a
I
bad
know what you're
way. I don't
saying.
mean that like a,
Yeah,
yeah, you're a bigger person than I
yeah,
am.
and you
But
know why? I was trying to, because again, that word divorce, because as a Christian
yes,
woman, remember, it was always said
right?
you're not supposed to get divorced. And so I struggle
Yes,
with that, because deep down inside, I was like, I really don't want to be, I'm not trying to be nobody's stepmama, because,
yes,
I know,
yes,
I've never been in this position, but I'm like, I'm not trying to do that. But I was trying to be the Christian and
indeed.
say, you know what? We're going to work this out. So we got an apartment. Let me rephrase it. I got an apartment.
You got an apartment.
I used the last of my money to make it work.
Wow.
And I asked him, I sincerely asked him, I said, do you want this to work? He was like, yes, I do. I love you. I'm so sorry. But I got to be there and I said, okay, I understand that we're going to work through this. And, in my mind, I'm thinking again, TV land, that, okay, me and the
Yes,
baby mother, we can be on one accord, this, that, and other. Honey,
exactly.
no, that did not work out.
And what you know what everybody out there need to understand, it's somebody you were married to for years.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody cannot say, "Oh, I would not have done."
Yes,
We feel like we would not have done,
yes,
but until you're in that place and you want it to work. And
yes,
of course, when you told your story so far, you were trying to be this perfect wife, and
yeah,
it's still something like you said, you didn't want divorce because of the Christian walk and
yeah,
how I asked my pastor that when I was going through my divorce. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be right with God, right? So
yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
So that's why nobody can't sit there and say I wouldn't do it unless you're in that situation. You just don't know. You're just trying to make it work.
exactly.
So,
You're just
and for
trying.
you still to believe that after all that, I would say, you're still bigger than me in a lot of
Yeah,
things, but because your heart is so much bigger than mine.
yeah.
That's what
And
you have a big heart.
and to piggyback off of that, the big heart meant I never set boundaries for myself.
Yes.
And that's the thing that we have to understand, especially as women.
Yes.
We have to learn to set those boundaries, and it's okay. And when we
Yes.
set those boundaries,
Thank
and
you
I
for
did
that.
not have those boundaries, so guess what? He felt like, okay, well, she's gonna take it, she's gonna do whatever. But at this
Yes.
point, I already knew that he no longer wanted to be married. So,
Yeah. And you knew
the
that. You knew
lies,
that deep
yeah, I
down.
knew that deep
Mhm.
down inside. And it wasn't until my birthday, November 27th,
Mhm.
2007. I remember that because we were at a birthday party. My sister had given me a small shindig downtown, and at this
Mhm.
time, everybody knew what happened. you know. So it was like walking in, it was the big elephant in the room. Me and him walk in, like, you know, we're gonna work this out, and everybody's looking at him side eye, but they're
Yes.
trying to be, cordial and trying to be happy for me. And he gives me a birthday gift, Arlene, but it
Mhm.
was really, I really paid for my birthday gift. It was a Coach bag. It was something I had
Yes.
always wanted, and
Yeah.
and I
Mhm.
asked for him before, but it came out of my money. So, I was toiling with that. I was asking friends, like, he gave me a purse, but it really came out of my money. And, so people were trying to give me positive advice. Well, it's from the heart or whatever. But deep down inside, it's like, come on, girl. No, that's
Exactly.
unacceptable as well. But again, I'm
Exactly.
trying to be the Christian woman, and I'm trying to make it work, and not
Exactly.
because he was all that type of husband, but
Of
because I was
course.
trying to keep,
It's what you were trying.
yeah, I
Yes.
was trying to keep that family dynamic, that picture of my family
Hmm.
together. And so that night, and I remember coming back home. We came back after the party, and again, I was having a good time with my friends, but him, it was just kind of like, okay. So I
Yes.
remember coming back to the apartment that night, and I was feeling all, I'm trying to just put everything out of my mind. I'm like, okay, let's go get a drink and let's have a good time. And
Hmm.
Arlene, when I tried to be intimate with him,
Yes.
there was nothing. There
Nothing
was
there.
nothing. November
Hmm.
27, 2007 was the last time I was intimate with my ex-husband. And that's
Yes.
how I knew it was done.
It was
It
completely
was it
over.
was completely dead. It was no,
Hmm.
wow. I sat on the bed. There was not even, you couldn't even finish. Like we couldn't even
Yeah.
finish it just wasn't nothing there. So
Nothing
it
there.
was
Clearly,
nothing.
like you're
It
saying.
was,
And we know because
yes,
that's an intimate time for a husband and wife.
yes,
So of course
it was,
we know
yeah.
he's just like, yeah,
It was
it's
nothing
done.
there, and that's when I knew, and that's when I began to be afraid, because I'm like, now I'm going to be divorced, I'm going to be
Yes.
alone. And and I go more into the divorce in the book and whatnot, but that's when my journey began, because at
Began.
that time it's like, okay, now we're about to get evicted from the apartment, let me just go ahead and
Yes.
move, because I can't pay the rent anymore. I'm at this moment now, I'm done. I only have
Yes.
$200 out of my six-figure savings. you know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
$200 left out of my six-figure
$200.
savings that I have been planning and saving since, I want to say, since I started working at the age of 19,
Yes.
20. So you can imagine, as being a woman, you worked all your life, you
Yep.
saved, because I worked in college, 6, 7 jobs, because I had
Yes.
that was one of my goals. I wanted to make sure I had money for my business and all this. But now,
Yes.
from that time to then, $200 left in my pocket out of a
Wow.
six-figure plus
Yes.
savings. And
Wow.
so, this is when I had to move in with my sister, all of my
Hmm.
belongings. He dropped me off, and that was it. And that's when
That
I
was
was like,
it.
wow, oh my God.
Wow.
You know,
And let me tell you this, Trinette. Let me tell you, I could talk to you all
I
day
know,
long.
right?
Look, we are everyone. Yes, we are way over. I know you are enjoying this. You would think I have not heard her journey, but I know we have so much. Get the book.
Yes.
We're going to talk about again how you can get the book so you can hear so much more, because like she said, she moved in with a sister, and or she has a show. We're going to talk about all of that. Book her on your podcast if you have anything coming up. She can get more into the story. She will. She's a sister of mine, so I need to probably have her come back so we can dig more into
Yeah.
after she left the divorce,
Yes.
because I say we probably needed a two-parter. That's what we probably should have done. But let me just ask this, because I want to go into that healing,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to leave it at that point, because everyone has heard
Yeah.
so much of what you went through,
Yeah.
and we don't want to leave it to the point of, because we know you went through so much. How do you deal with because divorce brings so much emotions,
Yeah.
what you went through, all of it, the highs and lows, the pain, the anger, the loneliness,
Yeah.
after now knowing you can be by yourself, trying to learn to forgive. What areas at the time after, let's just go to after the divorce was finalized. What part of anything during going through the divorce and afterwards did you deal with the most, if or all of the above, some of them?
All of the
What some
above.
of the emotions you dealt? Yeah.
All of the above. And then there were there stages of it. It was stages
Yes.
of it. And, divorce is grief. It's like a
Of
death.
course.
So it literally, I was going through the stages of grief because I had to really fathom the thought that, oh wow, I'm no longer married. As you
Yes.
stated in the beginning, you really don't plan on marrying to divorce. You don't
No,
see
you
those
don't.
things. So I had to really sit and think like, wow, I'm divorced. So the healing, and I want people to understand, the healing does not happen overnight. It
Not
doesn't
at
happen
all.
in months. It doesn't happen in
Not
a
at all.
year. It is a process. It is a
Process.
journey, but you
That's
can
the
be
word, the
healed. Yes,
process.
you can be healed. And I want people to understand you can be healed from this. You can be healed from
Yes.
whatever is thrown at you, but you have to allow the process to happen. And it wasn't
Yes.
quite, it wasn't easy for me
Hmm.
in the beginning, because it again, I was dealing with so many emotions. I was dealing with the anger, I was dealing with the doubt.
Yes.
For me and God, I was like, oh, we're not cool anymore, and
Yeah.
mind you, I'm a Christian, but I stopped going to
Yes.
church.
Yes.
I stopped praying, you know.
It makes you question a lot of
I
that
was
because you were
questioning.
trying to do it
Yes,
that way.
yes. And
So I see.
I knew God was still God, but I was at this
Of
point,
course.
I didn't understand him. I didn't know why he allowed this to happen. But over time, I had to be alone and I had to
Hmm.
become one with him. Jesus
Of
became my
course.
boo thing. Me and him became
Exactly. That's
BFF.
always a
you
good
know,
thing.
I had to learn him again and in a different
Yes.
way this time. So, I had to
Exactly.
unlearn what not, yeah, I had to unlearn some things prior to
Yes.
that. So now I had to learn him all again, over again, but it was a different, I had to learn to love him. And I also had to learn to love myself
Self.
first. And that's
Exactly.
where the problem was. I never loved myself enough first to say,
Yes.
hey, this is what I like and don't want, and so forth. So that healing process was very challenging, because that meant
Yes.
a long time for me. That meant no dating. That meant
Yes.
being abstinence. I had to
Yes.
practice that.
Yes.
And this was like for almost 10 years. I had to go through this process of, well, actually,
Exactly.
yeah, 8 years. So from 2007 up into 2014, I was literally
Wow.
by myself. Um,
Hmm.
I had to become one with him. I had to
Of
cut out
course.
a lot of things that, because again, my focus had to be redirected to him, and I had to unpack a lot of things. And I
Of
I
course.
want to add that therapy and counseling
I was going to
played
ask that.
played a
I
big
was going to
part
ask
in
if you
my
went,
healing
did
journey.
counseling.
Yes,
Of course.
counseling, therapy
It's very
is
important.
very important. God gives us the tools and strategies, and
Yes.
we can pray about it. And in our prayers, He's going to answer us by sending us
Yes.
the tools, the strategies. So
Yes.
He sent me
Yes.
people and a person to help me work through my grief, help me to work through
Wonderful.
my anger, the bitterness, because I
Yes.
was that bitter Black woman. I didn't want to
Exactly.
see a man. I didn't want to talk about him. I had started to hate men. I started to hate
Yes.
Black men because,
Hmm.
along with my ex-husband, I started thinking about all of the other ex-boyfriends
Of
that
course.
I had that did me wrong or whatever. And so this hatred started building up. My heart was
Of
Black.
course.
So,
Of course.
so that
Wow.
that was the catapult, like that just took me over the edge. So your
Exactly.
healing,
And it's a good thing you did counseling, Trinette,
yeah,
because in our community, a
yes,
lot of people shun counseling.
yes,
And I think it's growing more now.
yeah,
And I think our community, thankfully, is more open to it than we were maybe 10, 15, 20, I'll say years ago, as
exactly,
much. And if they did, it was private.
yeah,
They didn't say anything. So I'm so glad that, you said you did do counseling, because I think that is key for healing. Sometimes we need that help.
Yeah,
We need that
we
help.
do.
And God put them there for a reason. You
Exactly.
know,
And that's what I said.
we know God can heal it, but he also
Right.
put professionals there to help us in that process.
Exactly. And that's what you have to be open to. And you have to be open
Yes.
to your healing. So the healing
You have to be
process,
open to your healing.
yeah,
That is
you
wonderful.
have to. We can always say, I don't want to feel angry anymore. I don't want to, I don't want to do this, or I want to move forward, or I want to be married again. But if God is not going to bless you if you're still holding on to
Yes.
those traumas, the pain,
Yes.
the drama of your life, because he it's not fair to the next person. He wants to bring
It's
that to you
not.
for life.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
have to be
Let me
willing.
ask you this here,
Hmm.
Trinette. This is what I wanted to ask you. Sometimes we always too have to accept the part when you would say you were mad at God, and do you were you able to in your healing process come to grips to say, okay, did God tell me to marry him?
Hmm.
Because see, God will heal. We know God can heal anything. God
Yes.
can make everything right. But did you ever ask at some point to say, okay, and we know God could have healed that. I mean,
Hmm.
kept that marriage together. Now we
Hmm.
know that even if we didn't ask him,
Yes.
but did you ever say, okay, I don't know if God truly put us together?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my story.
Yeah.
And when I say that, good things came out of mine,
Right.
thankfully,
Right.
because I have a daughter,
Yeah.
and I know I'm glad I did it, even though it ended in divorce.
Yeah.
But did you ever ask that?
Oh yeah, I did, and the answer didn't come to me until years later. And it
Yes.
was, God did not mean for us to get married. I
Yeah.
did
Yes.
that. And for a long time
We
I was
plan.
like, well,
Yes.
God put us together because all of these signs. No, 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 no.
Hmm.
I did that. And when you read the book, you will
Exactly.
know what I'm talking about in the beginning, because I tell people I did that. I
Hmm.
went out there and
Yes.
picked him, knowing that I wasn't
Exactly.
supposed to, because it wasn't aligned. It was just something I did on my own. So when I
Yeah.
look back, no, I don't like what happened. I don't like the fact that
Yeah.
I went
Exactly.
through it.
Same.
However, I'm glad it happened, because I would not be where I am today. You understand what
Exactly.
I'm saying?
And that's pulling out the good that came out
Yes.
of something that was still painful and hard.
Yeah.
That's the same thing, like I told you. I put Alexis came out of mine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course the same thing you're saying, I came out of it back to who I truly know who I am.
Yeah.
And it's like it brought me back into starting this podcast,
Yeah.
wanting to work with women, wanting to speak. It brought me back to me.
Exactly.
So sometimes because let me tell you, in my career, I always said maybe God wouldn't let me always make that total great money in my profession,
Yeah.
because he probably said, you'll get a little too comfortable, and I didn't call you to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so to your point, I agree. And that's what women have to do. You went through that. Stop questioning God if he didn't tell you to
Mm-hmm.
marry this
Mm-hmm.
person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, try do the heal, go through the healing,
Yeah.
and then still, and you and I, Trinette, will still also tell some women, some marriages have survived some of the
Yes.
stuff.
And that's what I wanted to say. You're right.
Yeah.
I know some marriages who have survived
Yes.
infidelity. And they
Yes.
are, they're thriving, because sometimes your marriage will go through those things.
Yes. Yes.
It's going to go through some drama, some trauma, and just life experiences. Some relationships literally have bounced back for that. But for us,
Yes.
it was not supposed to bounce
It's
back,
just
because
not our
we were
story.
not
Yes.
supposed to be there. And
Yes. And
that's,
we celebrate those women because
yeah.
I love love. I always tell people.
Yeah, I do
So
too. I do too. I love it. I'm always an advocate for it, and I don't celebrate divorce in that sense, but I celebrate
same.
if you get divorced, I celebrate the freedom of it, knowing that, okay, you
Yes.
you acknowledge something, because God did not tell us, and I just told this to someone, um, you know, as a Christian woman, I toyed with that for a long time, because I'm like, oh
Yes.
Jesus, I'm going to hell, because again, it was, you're
Same.
not supposed to get divorced, but God did not tell you to be a fool. And in an abusive relationship, any type of mental or physical abusive, or if it's just not right, he didn't
Yes.
want you to be in
Exactly.
that situation. but that doesn't
Yes,
mean that you just get up and be like, oh, well, you know what? I don't like the way you cook these eggs and this, that, and the other. We're going to
exactly.
get divorced. No, he wants you to work on it. He wants you to pray about it or whatnot. But we also have to start
Yes.
looking at the when God gives us those signs, and
Mm-hmm.
he literally will give those signs to us. We have to take
Yes.
heed to it. So the healing
Amen
is
to that.
there. The life after divorce is there. Life after divorce
Yes.
is phenomenal. It's
Yes.
not the end of your story. It's not the end of your path. It's not the end of your
Thank
journey.
you for saying that. Yes,
You know,
I agree. And of course, with everything you've heard Trinette say, that leads me into the parts of just what she said. There's life after divorce, and we are your survival guys to show you that
yeah,
that is so true. And after everything, Trinette was so transparent to tell you, you still have to see she kept building.
yeah,
She kept moving. She did not sit still and just say, woe unto me only. She kept growing into the things that she knew God was calling her to do. So tell me that, Trinette, the things that you're working on today that came out of this. We know the Woman on Fire book,
yeah.
which we supposed to be a movie, guys. Hopefully something, a play or
Yes,
something,
soon.
maybe one
Whew.
day. So tell us about a lot of the things that you are working on, being the coach, and the show I know you do with men, dealing with men,
Yeah.
and just tell us everything that you're doing today, a part of your business and being an
So
entrepreneur.
out of the Woman on Fire, again, I did not want to talk about it anymore. I was done when I wrote this book. I was done because I really
Yes,
did not want to write the book. But
yes,
again, I had to be obedient, and it because it was coming from my journal. It got published. I published it. So
yes,
out of that, I set it down. But out of that, I became a certified relationship coach because I knew that he did what he did, but I also had to take accountability for what I did and didn't do. So after I
yes.
finished blaming him, I had to look at me and say,
Look
you know
at self.
what?
We have to look at ourselves, right?
Yes, and that's the hardest part. So I had to learn how to
Yes, it
build
is.
the relationship with myself. So now I teach people, especially women, how to build relationships starting with self. In order for us to have healthy relationships with anybody
Yes,
else, you got to have that healthy relationship
I
with
love that.
self.
Yes,
So that's what
yes.
I do, with the Woman on Fire
Your first
podcast.
relationship is with yourself.
Yes, and you have
Yeah.
to teach people how you want to be treated. And
Yes.
I've learned that. And so out of this, that was birth. The Woman on Fire podcast was birth, and that's to
Mhm.
acknowledge and celebrate women such as yourself and everyone who's gone through so much. Because again, my story of divorce may not be your story of divorce, or you. And then when
Exactly.
I look at some other women, and I'm like, oh my God, like I couldn't have survived what some women went through,
Some other
you
women
know.
went through. I
But
agree.
I applaud us all for making it out of the fire. So
Amen.
the Woman on Fire podcast celebrates women, listening
Mhm.
to their stories. And so I have that, and I also have a segment for the men, which is You've Got Mail podcast and radio show, and it's a spin off of Woman on Fire, but just in a
Yes.
different light, because men go through a lot of trauma. There are a lot of good
Yes.
men out here that want the same things as we do, but they've experienced some
Yes.
things and they really don't have that outlet to talk about it or to be in a safe space. So I provided a platform, a weekly radio show and a podcast to let the men say what they want to say about
Say
love,
what they
life.
were saying. And she has some phenomenal men on there. She yeah. So when is that? Is it do certain times of the year that you doing the show on
The Woman on
when,
Fire is twice a year
twice a
podcast.
year?
And
Okay.
my goal is to get that up as a weekly show as well. But right now I'm doing twice a year, bringing on
Okay.
about 15 women and to do the podcast, and that will run in the fall. But the
Okay.
weekly radio show is every Saturday at
Yep.
10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's a really good platform. It's so funny. The guys around me is
Yes.
You've Got Mail messages from him with Tashawn and Friends, and it allows me to actually learn from them. It actually,
Of
helps me to
course.
learn from men. So that's, and again, that was given to me by God, because I didn't want to,
Out of
Arlene, I
this.
didn't want to keep doing this.
Yes.
That was not my plan. I really did not see myself doing all of this. But again, we know that when God tells you to do something, you have to do it. And
Of
out of
course.
that, I'm like, Lord, you want me to do what with some men? Because remember,
Yeah.
I was still healing from,
You were still,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
still,
you were feeling some type of way about men.
right, so I'm like, wait a minute. So he had to tell, he said, no, I need you to understand where my sons are and what they're going through.
Yes. I
And
love
so
that.
I had to literally revamp my thought process and say, you know what? Because I love men. I love our black
And because
brothers.
we need to know what they're thinking. And that's
Right,
the good thing.
right.
And let me tell you what, you ladies, when I tell you she have some outspoken men
Yes,
on there, these are not men, these are men who are doing, look like wonderful things.
yes,
I don't know them like her, but they look like they're doing wonderful things. And they're so, they speak the truth.
yeah,
And we need to learn from them, because that old book said men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
true,
It's
and
true.
we disagree on a lot of things, but what comes out on
Exactly.
respect. We know how to
Respect.
have conversation, and that's
Exactly.
one of my goals, is to bridge that conversation between men and women, especially black men and women, because again, we want the same things. We just delivering it. We don't know how to accept it the same way, or we deliver it,
Exactly.
in different ways. So, building healthy relationships with yourself and with others, that is what I am, I'm called to do.
And you're doing it.
And I appreciate you all, because
You are
again,
doing it.
I did not I did not see any of this, Arlene. This was not in my book of
Not at
visions.
all. Not at
I was
all.
supposed to
Not at all.
literally retire as Dr.
Your plan was to retire.
you know, and I was supposed to be in I was actually supposed to have a daycare center. Like, I never thought about
Wow.
this, and God has you again. He knows the vision. He knows your plans. And I had to surrender my plans over to him and say,
Yes.
here I am, Lord. I don't know what you have in store for me, but I know it's good. So, out of all of this, the podcast, the business, the coaching, being a certified relationship coach, having all of
Yes.
that, like, it is phenomenal. I'm beyond ecstatic,
Yes.
because God has blessed me to heal. That's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Blessed me to heal. I'm no longer that bitter woman. I'm no longer
Yeah.
hating on men, or just hating life, because again, when I asked God to open up my heart, he opened it, and he blessed
Yes.
me with new. So I'm
Yes.
just in that place of just, God, wow. It's like
Yeah,
a wow
exactly.
factor for me.
Of course. And let me tell you, that's why everyone, I know we went over the time, but Trinette has so much that she can offer us to see again how a planner, a person who thought she had it all figured out in her book, in her mind, God will say, no, 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 no. I
Yeah.
promise you, you have to. You cannot look at disappointments and feel like, it's done. You're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
You truly need to do the work like Trinette said and did. And you ask God, what is it you're calling me to do?
Yeah.
And he may be wanting you to, he will, they always say, I heard TD Jake say, you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plan.
Yes. And he was
So
laughing at me, because I sure
he will
was.
laugh. And let me tell everyone, if you ever go on her page, I want you to give your social media, Trinette, also in a second. If you go on her page, you will see that, you would think she was just destined to, well, no, not think. She was destined to do what she's doing. She has that social media look. She has that, the personality and everything for what she's doing.
Yeah,
And it's
thank
crazy,
you.
even though she may not have felt that way, you know, earlier, because it blows my mind that she, was thinking about, just being an educator and everything and all of that. Yeah, I see her more in the world she's in now, but that's
Yeah.
just me. Of course, I'm seeing her now. I would have not known that either. But it is so key that you get that.
Yeah.
Do not just sitting in that despair and that pain,
Yeah.
ask God, okay, God, what is it you want me to do? I don't know how. It hurts still. I'm going to go through the process,
Yeah.
but I'm here to do what you're calling me to do.
Exactly.
That business is waiting on you. Another woman out there might need to hear how you tell your story.
Yeah.
Like Trinette dealing with men even now, talking about that. So that's still helping women also,
Yeah.
in that way, as well as men getting it and getting that what's on their mind off as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So wow,
Yeah.
it just blows our mind how God does move.
It
He
blows. Yes, in
moves.
that indeed. I tell anyone, yes, God, this is all God. This is
It is all
all
God.
God. So
So tell us, Trinette, how can we follow you?
you can follow me on all social media platforms, including the new app Clubhouse.
Mhm.
I am
Yeah,
Jeanette
one more
Collier.
app that I have to learn.
Yeah, and it'll be great for you. We'll talk about that. All
Okay.
social media, I am Trinette L. Collier or Trinette Collier, and my website, I am TrinetteLCollier.com. And, again, you're free to book a free discovery 15-minute discovery call, and we can set it up from there. But if you just ever
Uh-huh.
need just to talk and just to let something off, you can always reach me in my DMs and inbox, because I'm just a firm believer that even though this is my new career, and of course, this is where I'm headed. I also believe in healing, and
Yes.
sometimes God will send you where you need to start your healing. And for me, I
Yes.
just want everyone to heal and to live in their
Amen.
best, the
Same.
best that they can, because I'm a firm believer we're going to go through things. It's life. It's
Yes.
part of life. However, I made a promise to God when I got out of this, when he delivered me from all of this, I promised him that no matter what, that every day that he wakes me, I'm going to
Hmm.
live the best that I can. I'm going to
Exactly.
give him thanks. I'm going to find some type of laughter, some type of joy in my
Yes.
day. And for those who do know me, I love to laugh. I love to dance.
Yes.
And I am in a season of laughing. You hear me? I will
Exactly.
find something to laugh. I love being silly because I
Yes.
I am overwhelmed with the goodness. It doesn't mean that I have everything
Exactly.
that I really desire. I still don't have my child, but
Yes.
guess what?
Everyone, you heard that? She
I
still
still don't
does
have, and
not
I'm
have it.
49, you guys. I'm 49, hitting on
She
50.
doesn't look it, but yeah.
Look, thank
Yeah.
you. But I'm looking forward to 50. I don't know where my journey is going to end. I don't know, but I know
Yes.
that God, when I tell you he's good, and look, you're gonna make me start crying, but when I tell you he's good,
We both will be crying because
he is.
that's part of this podcast too. We laugh, we cry, but
Yes,
we heal.
he is.
We laugh, cry, and heal.
And that's what it is. When I tell you God is so good, Arlene, God is so good.
Amen.
And when you look back on after everything, you're gonna look back and you're gonna be looking like, oh, you're gonna pat yourself on the back like, yes, girl, you did that. God did you
You
that,
did that. Yes. Yes,
You look
sister.
back.
Let me tell you. That's why I said this podcast is about getting with. It's like getting with your sister, your girlfriend. Was you know how when we went through things, we get the ice cream. That's why I say that.
Yes.
I always say that in the beginning. Grab your ice
Grab your ice
cream.
cream.
We about to tell this story because this is
Yes.
a story we want for us to heal and just laugh and just everything you said. Oh my
Yes.
goodness! I promise you, Trinette.
I just want us to
You
heal, Arlene. I just want us to
we
heal, and
That's it.
platforms like yours is going to do such great work.
Like
And
ours,
especially in these
platforms like
times,
ours.
it's going to do so much. So I'm just so proud of you. And you know that I cannot wait to it day. I'm there because I cannot wait
Same.
to hear the healing stories that you're going to make an impact on with this. So, oh wow.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. But that is both what we're both doing.
Yes.
And I hope the listeners will hear that because they hear your heart.
Yeah.
So they already know that you're the same way. That's all you and I both want to do.
Yeah.
We just want women to heal. We want women to live their best, be the best version of themselves
Yes.
and who God has called them. We want everybody to love. We want everybody to be successful. We just want women to win at life.
Yes, yes, yes.
The same way we want to win at life. So
Yeah.
that's our goal. And those are the women I always will bring to each one of you.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoyed just the times with Trinette. I know you were in despair like me when you heard some of the parts of her story, but I hope as I end every session with someone, I hope you hear how she's walking in, you know, like she said, she doesn't know where it's going to end, where she's going to end up tomorrow, let's say, but she's walking in purpose to me, you know, in what God is calling her to do. And I hope you hear that. I am going to make sure when I put the notes out there and when I share, we will share her information. So if you didn't get to write it down, I will have all of that information for you and how you can reach out to her. When you know, if you ever reach out to her for relationship help, you know you're dealing with someone who wants to see you win in your relationships. So this is a woman I would definitely recommend to anyone. And let me tell you again, all she's gone through, she's still building. Trinette is your survival guide to show you it can be done. Trinette turned her pain into an opportunity to help other women by sharing the life in a book and not letting it stop her from being the boss lady she is. I promise you, Trinette, I love the fact that she's proof to show you that you can love again. She's married and she didn't give up on love. Purpose is bigger than obstacles. Do the work, sister. There's purpose on the other side of your obstacle. Your path can be repaved. Trinette, I want to thank you again. Or do you have any last words for our guests? I mean, for our audience.
I want to thank you again. And again, I'm so proud of you. And I pray many blessings. I would just like to say that again, like this is not the end of your story. This is not the end of your journey. Every day that God waits you, you make it the best that you can. And even if that day comes around and you just don't feel like it, you let God know. Talk to God. He knows. Yes. He knows what's good for you. But every day that you wake, you get up and you give it your best. And just find a moment to smile and laugh. I promise you, there's joy. There's something in your life that day that will make you smile, and just do that. So that's all I just want to tell people. Just find that moment to rejoice, because trouble don't last always.
Always. Amen to that. Oh boy, Trinette about to start preaching, y'all. I love it. Thank you, my sister.
Thank you.
I love you. Everyone out there, we thank you for joining us, and we'll be in touch until next time.